Welcome to Playing with Pastels. I'm Tricia Taylor, and today we're just going to do a simple exercise for those beginners out there that aren't sure how to use pastel or are beginning to art and not sure how to create a simple object. And today we're playing with an apple, something simple. Okay, first up is actually drawing an apple. We think it's a round object, but it's much easier to draw round objects with straight lines. It's going to be about that tall, down to there, about that wide. I'm just going to draw it at every angle where that angle changes. That's a little wider out this side than it is high. I might be seeing it slightly different to you because I'm looking at it from a different angle. But when you use straight lines to create that shape, it makes it a lot easier to do your drawing. All right. I've created a poem for my students to help them remember how to paint. It can be very confusing with all this detail and all those colours and all these things on there, but if you break it down to simple steps, it makes it much easier. And the first part of the poem starts, the first three tones will make it round. Then the cast shadow will put it on the ground. Highlight is where the texture is found, and reflected light comes from all around, and high contrast is where the edge is found. So let's begin with the first line of that poem. The first three tones make it round. I'll start with the shadow side, just blocking in, keeping it simple. Where are the darkest shadows on my apple? A little bit of shadow down in here. So that's my first tone. Second tone. Hops through here. And the final tone, tone number 3, is making it round. At this stage, I need to feel the form. If it needs a little bit more tone here, that will make it just that little bit rounder. A little bit more shadow down here. Okay, so we have our first stage, the first three tones, making it feel round. The next step I'm going to show you is line 2 to the poem, which is cast shadows, put it on the ground. Coming from the base of the apple, the light's coming from this direction and casting a shadow in this way. It'll actually follow the direction of the light, will tell you how far out that cast shadow goes. It's darker up close to the apple and dissipates lighter as it heads away, and even lighter again. We'll get one more pastel. So now we have a cast shadow. It's put it on the ground. If that shadow was lower, it would feel like the apple was floating, but now it's sitting on that table quite well. The next line to the poem is highlight is where the texture's found. This is where a lot of people jump too quick to that texture, trying to get all that detail in early. But because I have a really good form here, I'll know where to put my highlights. Okay. This is where the texture's found. So this is where I can start making marks smaller and lighter. And it's where the apple will actually get its texture from. How smooth is it? All depends on the shape of its real highlight. If your object has a sharp edge to it, that will mean it's a really glossy, hard surface. If it's a fuzzy highlight, it'll mean it's a textured object. And if you can't see the highlight, it's probably more like a woolly cloth. But in this instance, it's a shiny apple, so it's got a little bit of highlight to it. Just off here. Couple of coloured lights in here. A little bit more detail in that light area. And the shadows don't need the work. It's in the light where you'll find that texture. Small little highlights kicking back here. Okay, you'll notice that around the apple it's not, I haven't gone around it, it's very loose on those edges. That's okay, don't worry about that. We'll creep up on that as the poem goes. So the next line, we'll go through what it is so far. The first three tones, make it round. Cast shadows, put it on the ground. Highlight is where the texture's found. Reflected light comes from all around. So now we can pop some reflected lights coming in. There's a little bit of light bouncing off the floor there, off the table. Another patch of it across here. There's even that dark shadow is casting even a darker patch onto our apple here. A little patch against here. So you can see it's getting a little bit more detail and a little bit more detail as we go. There is reflected light coming from above as well. Just reflecting down in here. You have to look for what's around the apple, what could be making these lights reflect in. You don't want them too light, you don't want them competing with the highlight. And just a soft little light reflecting in from all around. You'll find just a little bit of it reflecting off that ground there, back into that shadow area. Just popping that into there. Okay, we're almost done. The last line to the poem. We've had the first 3 tones make it round, cast shadow puts it on the ground, highlights where the texture's found, reflected light comes from all around, and the last step is high contrast is where the edge is found. So if I want to find edges on this apple or lose edges, it'll depend on what tone is next to it. So let's put a nice light in its background. The tone of this background is not as dark as the apple, but it still can show up a slight edge. But as we get lighter and lighter and surround it with lighter colours, as if this light is shining in from this direction, this edge will show up more and more. So I can clean and tidy those edges as I go. Quite often there's a lovely little light kicks in underneath your object before that softness kicks out here. Nice little tidy up over here. Keep on wanting that to be tidied. Get some more red back in there. Okay, so now you can see the difference in the hardness of this edge. It's really found. And over here, it's almost lost. And you can create lost and found edges by varying the contrast of your tone. So that's the end of the poem. I hope it really helps you in the future with your painting, and keep playing with pastels.